04:30 a.m., September 24, 2025, the remains of Russia's Black Sea Fleet sat moored at Novorossiysk, their decks glistening under a pale pre-dawn haze. Once proud symbols of Moscow's power, they now lingered here, patched and scarred, trying to recover from the pounding Ukraine had dealt them. The crews believed they were beyond reach, safe behind walls of steel and radar. They were wrong. From the western horizon, 6 AQ-400 Scythe drones screamed low across the waves, flying 90 miles per hour, hugging the water at barely 50 feet, invisible to radar, their engines humming like hornets. From the south, 3 Magura V-5 unmanned boats carved paths through the dark sea. 2 carried 700-pound warheads. The third broadcast a false signal, the digital signature of a friendly patrol craft. The trap was perfect. Just 200 meters away, deep in a fortified bunker, a Ukrainian operator watched through the thermal lens of a Bayraktar TB2 circling at 27,000 feet. On his screen glowed the outline of his target, the Admiral Makarov, a $500 million frigate armed with 8-caliber cruise missiles. One wrong move, and those missiles would burn Ukrainian cities to ash. But tonight, the hunter had become the hunted. The strategy was psychological as much as tactical. Strike from every direction at once, sky, sea, and land, and the defender's mind would collapse. Force them to choose, and they would always choose wrong. At 04:38 a.m., alarms screamed across Novorossiysk command post. The Podsolnuk coastal radar had found a large contact, 50 miles out, with a radar cross-section of 110 square feet, something the size of a patrol boat. The crew of a Panzer S-1 anti-air system didn't hesitate. Servos whined, launch tubes rotated, and in 3 seconds, 57 E-6E missiles ripped into the mist at Mach 3. A heartbeat later, the decoy Magura boat erupted in a brilliant orange flash, a plume of seawater rising 20 feet high. But it was only bait. Moments later, a Costa 2E2 radar detected faint returns from the west, 6 small blips flying at 50 feet. The computer flagged them as birds lost in the fog. The Pantsir's Kalman filter choked on their tiny signatures, 1 square foot each, rendering the multi-million-dollar system nearly blind. In the bunker, the Ukrainian operator issued his next command. 2 scythes expelled clouds of chaff, thin metallic strips blooming into false radar targets 10 times larger. The other 4 dropped even lower, skimming 30 feet above the water, using the Krasnodar cliffs as natural cover, while the TB2 above relayed the Pantsir's coordinates through Starlink. Russian gunners panicked. They fired 4 more missiles. The sky exploded with fireballs, nothing but chaff. 1 scythe was shredded by stray shrapnel, but the trick had worked. 12 missiles wasted, 48 reduced to 36. At 04:40 a.m., the Krasuka 4 roared to life. Invisible energy flooded the air, a 186-mile-wide electromagnetic storm. In the Ukrainian bunker, monitors went red. Static consumed every feed. Signal lost. 5 drones vanished from the screen. 1 dipped so low its wing brushed the sea. The digital battlefield had gone dark. The ghosts were now flying blind. At 04:40 a.m., the sky over Novorossiysk burned with invisible electricity. The Kraska 4 had unleashed its weapon, a 186-mile-wide electromagnetic hurricane meant to cripple every Ukrainian signal in range. Inside the bunker, the operator's screens erupted in static, the crisp video feeds from the 5 remaining scythes dissolving into snow. Red lights flashed. Signal lost. 1 drone lurched wildly, wing nearly skimming a wave. In an instant, Russia had turned the air into a digital graveyard. But what the Russians didn't know was that the Krasuka's reaction lag 100 milliseconds, was slower than the drone's onboard AI, which made decisions in 50 milliseconds. It was like trying to blind a man who already knew the room by heart. The operator flipped a switch, forcing the drones into INS-AI autonomous mode. Deprived of GPS, they now flew using internal gyroscopes and preloaded terrain maps, navigating by instinct. High above, the Bayraktar TB2 pierced through the haze, scanning for the source of the jamming. Its camera caught the glint of a single ugly antenna array mounted on a truck, the Krasuka 4's emitter. The operator made his call. He sacrificed one drone. One scythe peeled away from the group, dove low, and turned itself into a 154-pound guided missile. Seconds later, the truck vanished in a flash that split the dawn. The static cleared. The signal returned. But the silence didn't last. The Russians had another trick. As the Krasuka died, its big brother, the Merman BN, came online. It spread a massive spoofing field, flooding the air with false GPS coordinates. One scythe drifted 2 miles off course, lost to the mission. 3 remained. At 04:41 a.m., with their electronic shield shattered, the Russian command reverted to its oldest habit: send in brute force. From a nearby coastal airfield, 3 Orion drones climbed into the gray sky. They were hunter-killers, designed to chase down targets just like these. The lead Orion scanned the sea through a thermal camera. Fog blanketed everything, but a faint glow betrayed one of the Magura V5 boats. A quick turn of its engine had exposed a bloom of heat against the cold water. The Orion locked on instantly. A KAB-20 guided missile dropped from its wing and plunged downward. The hit was perfect. The Magura V5, carrying 700 pounds of explosives, detonated mid-sea. The blast ripped a geyser of fire and water 20 feet high, shredding the waves around it. Half of Ukraine's naval strike power disappeared in an instant. Russian crews cheered. They thought the tide had turned, but they were wrong again. The Orion was fast, 120 meters, but the Scythe drones, though slower at 90 meters, were smaller, stealthier, and hidden by fog and cliffs. Worse, Russia had only 3 Orions guarding the entire sector. In the bunker, the Ukrainian operator countered calmly. He ordered the last Magura V5 to slow to 20 meters, sinking into the troughs between 6-foot waves, a shadow in the sea. The 3 scythes switched to cold mode, rerouting their exhaust upward, flattening heat signatures as they hugged the Krasnodar cliffs. Now, the hunters were being hunted. Above them, the Bayraktar TB2 watched through the fog like an all-seeing eye. The Orion pilots searched blindly below, unaware that death was already climbing toward them. At 04:52 a.m., one scythe peeled off, guided by coordinates streamed through Starlink. The lead Orion never saw it coming. While the Russian pilots scoured the sea for boats, the scythe rose from below, its 154-pound warhead locked onto his thermal signature. The impact was sudden and final. The Orion disintegrated in a bloom of fire and shattered composites, raining debris into the fog. Ukraine had lost 1 boat. Russia had just lost its eyes in the sky. At 04:43 a.m., with 1 Orion drone burning in the mist, the remaining 2 Russian pilots pulled back, disoriented, searching for any trace of their target. Below them, the final Magura V5 and the last 3 Scythe drones pressed forward, sliding beneath the fog toward the heart of Novorossiysk harbor. The operator's voice was calm. "Continue approach." The Russian crews aboard the Admiral Makarov were anything but calm. Their ship's sensors had caught the echoes. The hum of machinery rose to a roar as the AK-630 close-in weapon system came alive. A turret of spinning barrels, 10,000 rounds per minute of 30-millimeter fire. The sound was not a gunshot, but a continuous scream, a torrent of metal. At 04:44 a.m., red tracers sliced through the fog, painting the sky with streaks of fire. One of the two remaining scythes disintegrated instantly, shredded into splinters of plywood and flame. Only one drone remained airborne, but the AK-630 had a weakness. Its ammunition drum emptied in less than 20 seconds of continuous fire, and its MR-123 radar, built for large sea-skimming missiles, struggled to track a small, cold, wooden craft. Worse, the Admiral Makarov itself was heaving on 6-foot swells, tilting 5 degrees either way, throwing off every calculation. The gunner was firing from a moving platform at a target barely the size of a lawnmower, darting at 90 miles per hour. Inside the Ukrainian bunker, the operator pushed forward. The last scythe began a deadly dance, a serpent-like burst of violent, computer-assisted jinks and dives, weaving left, right, up, down, faster than the gun's targeting computer could react. Each movement was survival written in code. 10 miles away, the final Magura V5 fired its last weapon. A thick cloud of chaff, a metallic storm that bloomed into a huge false target on Russian radar. For a moment, the ship's sensors believed the real threat had multiplied. The AK-630 shifted aim, hammering at ghosts. High above, the Bayraktar TB2 locked its laser onto 2 points: the fuel depot at the pier and the Caliber missile launch tubes of the Admiral Makarov. Invisible beams painted the targets as the scythe streaked closer. The harbor dissolved into chaos. Sailors screamed orders, some firing rifles into the air, one even launching a Verba shoulder-fired missile, its heat seeker useless in the thick fog. Tracers from the CIWS curved wildly, chasing phantoms. The gunner's counter screamed toward zero. Then silence. The last scythe broke through. At 04:44 a.m., its onboard camera locked onto the view. The pier-side fuel depot, gleaming under floodlights, and the 8 Caliber tubes beside it. 50 milliseconds later, the drone adjusted course. It didn't aim for the ship's bridge, it dove for the depot. Impact. The 154-pound warhead struck, focusing its blast into a molten jet of copper traveling 8,000 feet per second. The jet punched through the depot's 1-inch steel wall as if it were paper. Then came the inferno. Within seconds, fuel ignited, and the fire spread toward the Admiral Makarov, its heat cooking the delicate missile guidance systems. The ship didn't sink, but something worse happened. Its Caliber launchers melted in place, twisted into useless tubes of steel. A $500 million warship reduced to dead weight. Flames towered above the harbor. The Novorossiysk port turned into a blazing skyline, smoke rolling for miles. The Ukrainian operator leaned back, exhaling slowly. From 200 miles away, his team just crippled Russia's last pride of the Black Sea. All with barely $2 million in drones and imagination. The silence that followed was not peace. It was disbelief. The strike was over in seconds, but its echo rolled across the sea. By 04:45 a.m., the Admiral